Hello, my co-highs. Hope you're all doing well. I'm your host, Tyranna Senpai, and welcome to the grand return of Prehistoric Kingdom speed builds. And today we are building the long-awaited Dilophosaurus enclosure. Now, first and foremost, the one thing you will have probably noticed by now is that the park looks different, and that's because with the new update Prehistoric Kingdom rolled out, the speed build. The what? Oh God, I'm blowing it already. The speed build park I had worked on before was deleted. So yeah, I had to build the whole park again from scratch. Nothing in this park looks exactly like it did before, so it's all completely new. And of course, you know, I rebuilt the whole thing. It looks much nicer, and so now I was able to record this video because of all the rebuilds. Hopefully, we won't have this issue again, but if we do, I might actually pull out some hairs. But today we are building the Dilophosaurus Canyon enclosure, and what we're doing here is, we're just basically, outlining where the fence is gonna be. I call myself an artist, but I feel like that term is subjective. It really depends on how you look at it. But what I'm doing here is very similar to like when I draw like in a sketchbook. I map out the shape with very light pencil strokes, which will eventually, have like these, basically the basis for what the actual piece will look like. So, like, I draw like circles and cylinders, things like that to fill the shape, and then build off from that. I'm basically doing the exact same thing here with the path. I'm outlining where I want the fence to be, and I'm also making sure, it's a pretty adequate size, because Dilophosaurus is a big dinosaur. Oh, and get this, for whatever reason, the group suggestion for Dilophosaurus is 4 males. Oh, wait, no. Is it 4 males? No, it's 3 males and 1 female. It's a reverse harem. That is so crazy. Almost kind of reminds me of Primitive War, with the Dilophosaurus, where it's the female that's the most dominant in the group. I find this interesting, that it's the female that's the one that's kind of like the dominant one of the group. Anyway, so once I determined that like the fence, is tall enough, because I got now there are actually requirements for these creatures, like suggestions for like the kinds of fencing to use and how big the enclosure needs to be and all that stuff. Once I got all that done, I start mapping out the canyon, and you know how it is, just put in a big old ditch in the ground, put some walls, just try to make it unique, because with this enclosure I wanted to try making a canyon. With the Velociraptor enclosure we had a huge cliff. With the Dilophosaurus we had, a mangrove forest. Now I want to try something different by making the enclosure kind of like a rocky maze. I was partially inspired by the Path of Titans Gondwa map, more specifically the canyon that is in Hunter's Thicket, as a basis, as well as that one shot of the Dilophosaurus in When Dinosaurs Roam America, where it's walking across like this desolate-looking desert place with bubbling springs and things like that. But it came out looking more like the Dustberg map from the Dinosaur King DS game of all things, which I'm not gonna complain. I love that game. If you haven't seen my playthrough of it, I'll just pop the playlist right up there in the corner for you guys to check out later when this video is over, or now. I won't stop you. But anyway, once I built up the walls, I put down a spring, and, I start building up the cliffs with rock walls. Now, this build used a lot, I mean a lot of rocks. And I have no one to blame but myself. I wanted to make a very extravagant build, and so that's what I decided to do. And I tried my best to, like, make the rocks all different shapes and sizes, so they're not all the same. But the one thing I wanted to do was connect the this one like plateau to the other with a bridge. And the original idea was I was going to use this these two blocks here as a basis for what I was going to do. I put a Dilophosaurus on there for scale, because it's always good to have a scale for your builds to see, how the dinosaur fits around it. After that, I start taking little bits of individual planks of wood, and very slowly and precariously copy and paste them so, I can start making the bridge. I tell you, I spend a long time making this bridge. This is only just the first bit of it, and oh my god, it took forever. I'm telling you, I really wish there was like a way to like very slowly and with small increments like move an object down or sideways. Once again, I put a Dilophosaurus there to get a sense of scale. Dilophosaurus too tall. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but we're going too fast. I made the hole deeper. There we go. Oh my god, I'm having a stroke up here. I'm blowing it. Oh man. But yeah, I'd spend a long time on this. Thank god for speed builds, right? This footage is 8 times speed, by the way, for those wondering. So now I'm just moving it in tiny increments, going down, 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 down. And of course, I only got like half of the bridge done because my idea was I'm going to copy and paste the other side. Because, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Once I thought that was adequate, I then decided, kind of put the wooden poles at the end and then some rope to bind it all together. I was kind of going for sort of like an Indiana Jones type of bridge or something like that. I don't know. But I decided this was the build I wanted to do. So here I am getting some rope, stretching it, and putting it where I think it looks best. And, copy and pasting it. And then came the part where I was just doing... I've never built bridges before, and I've never walked... I don't think I've ever walked. Maybe I have, and I've suppressed that memory because I'm afraid of heights. I put some rope, connecting the main piece with the planks, which would then connect to a rope on the underneath. I'm sure that's how rope bridges work. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. I don't know how to build shit. So I didn't move the ropes a bit closer to each other rather than from the edge, because it looks a bit weird if it's right on the side. And now I'm putting some curled up rope to give the illusion that it's tied around the main piece of rope. And I do this along the entire length of this big thick rope, where they attach. So it doesn't look like it's just phasing through like an abomination. Oh god, I have hiccups. I am blowing the speed build recording, but you know what? It's funny, so I'm going to leave it in, and I don't care. Once I'm satisfied with my work, I copy and paste, and adjust them accordingly to, fit the rest of the places. Because they're not all going to be 100% perfect. Believe me, I try to be, but not everyone can be Death the Kid. I move them around, I change their size, and then I copy and paste the long strand of rope after deleting all my progress under there. And then it was time to rebuild everything I just deleted. Because now, with that long piece of rope underneath, I now had a basis for where I could put the planks. Very smart in theory. Kind of tedious in practice. Because, oh damn, this still took a long time. I'm telling you, I spend more time working on these bridges than I did in the actual enclosure itself. Like, oh damn. And I do my best to make sure, they line up with the rope and all that stuff. All that stuff. Oh god. Can you tell I'm not meant to do speed build videos, but here I am. Oh god. It's a very long, very tedious process. And honestly, if you don't really have the patience for this sort of thing, this isn't going to be fun for you. Anyway, I then pretty much finished the bridge from here. I line it up, make sure everything is where it needs to be. And I adjust the size of the wood. And I also actually make sure it actually connects to the plateau and the main enclosure. And now, it's it's time to build up the rock walls around that little pool. And, you know, I don't really like using water bowls. I know it's a feature in the game where dinosaurs, you know, they can drink from water troughs and things like that. But honestly, I prefer having water features in my enclosure. And I know Dilophosaurus is one of those creatures where it doesn't need water in its enclosure to be happy. It's just fine with a water bowl. But again, I like having a water feature or some body of water in an enclosure. So that's why I did this instead of just, you know, putting a silly little bowl there. And of course, the Dilophosaurus actually does have a water minimum depthness of like 1 meter, so of course I put some water in there. And then line up some more rocks around the edges, you know, to hide, you know, any texture weirdness in the raised terrain and all that weird stuff. And now I'm adding some vegetation to bring some color to this. Again, this looks more like the Dustberg map from Dinosaur King than freaking Path of Titans Hunter Sticket. That's what it looks like to me. I don't know. But I still like how it turned out in the end. But now came the test of, could my Dilophosaurus actually walk across the bridge? We'll find out here in a minute. I probably should have tested it first before I finished my work on the bridge, but clearly I wasn't that intelligent. So I just continued on to build up the rock walls, and I also made an additional canyon for them to go through, which would also have another meat feeder, another carnivore feeder. I don't know why I had to say meat feeder specifically, because the Dilophosaurus has 2 that I can eat from. There we go, putting down the carnivore feeder. Boop. And I continued building up the canyon walls. Pretty self-explanatory, very repetitive. You know how it is. And once again, changing size and positions of these rocks really makes all the difference between, you know, a bland-looking enclosure with the exact same rocks and the exact same rocks, but flipped around or changed in proportion to make it look different. I also begin to smoothen out some parts, you know, just for the Dilophosaurus to be able to walk in, because there's got to be points of entry and exit for them. And then came the arduous task of figuring out if the Dilophosaurus could walk on the bridge. Spoiler alert, as you can clearly see, they either flat out avoid it, or in this instance, they fall off, or they fall from it. Like, they actually phase through the bridge and land on the ground. So at that moment, I kind of realized, oh crap, the bridge doesn't work. I failed. So even though I spent a long time building this bridge and making it look cool, I had to rebuild it with flat modular pieces. Now, this could just be an oversight from me, because, you know, maybe the bridge wasn't wide enough. But this bridge is almost the exact same length and width of the previous one, and the Dilophosaurus are able to walk on it just fine, because I tested it several times while recording and after recording this speed build, and they can walk on this, but not on, like, planks of wood that are laid out flat. It's so weird, right? You think that wouldn't be an issue, because, like, they have a Nava mesh they follow, and the bridge has very little gaps. I don't understand how they just fall through it. Like, I don't know a good analogy. They just slip through the cracks of the planks, I guess. They turn into water and then solidify when they hit the ground. So after I go back, rebuild the bridge, I have to go back and put the stinking rope back on. Oh god, this bridge took me so freaking long. I sincerely hope the more I do this, the better it gets. Like, the more I do this, the better I become at making these sort of structures. And as you just saw there, yeah, the Dilophosaurus is able to walk on it, walk back and forth. And of course, I modify it so like the terrain actually matches up with the end of the bridge. And, scooch it as far back as I can. And then it's back to building up the cliff. I also apologize if my voice sounds a little weird. I probably should have mentioned this before. But it is a very weird time of the month in September where it is humid as all hell. And my nose is running like a leaky faucet. So my nose is very stuffed. So I am deeply sorry. I probably should apologize beforehand, but you know what? Better late than never. So here I am, still building those cliff walls, making sure everything looks pretty and nice. And also making sure the canyon wall is actually wide enough for them to actually walk through. Because there are several times where these Dilophosaurus end up either getting stuck or they just flat out refuse to go through. Which is kind of weird because this canyon is like, should in theory be able to house one Dilophosaurus at a time pretty easily. But no, they need wider space. And I'm totally okay with giving them that. It means more space is filled out in the end. And then I put down the fish feeder because, they like fish. And continue building up the walls. Now, I don't show this in the speed build, but I do make a second bridge. Not from scratch. I literally just copy and pasted the bridge that I made before because I'm not gonna waste like over half this video trying to make another bridge. I then put some sand around the food, just to make it look different and stand out. Because this whole enclosure is nothing but rock, rock, and more rock. And I wanted it to be this way because, I had enclosures that had sand. I had enclosures that looked mud. I had enclosures that looked like, a fern prairie. I wanted to do a rocky desert, and you know what? I think I pretty much nailed it here. Just nothing but rocks and dirt. That's the enclosure. Rocks and dirt. And it came out nicely, I like to think. Anyway, I'm now just smoothing out this little exit over here so you can see them like struggling trying to get up here as I'm doing this. But there I am smoothing out the edges. And, after this, I kind of got tired because it was like 2 a.m. in the morning when I was recording this. And I called it a day. And I came back to finish the walls. And I already kind of butchered it because these rocks all of a sudden decided to change color even though I was copy and pasting the color code. So I changed the whole colors back, I think, or pretty close to where I had them before, and I continued building up the walls, and then it was time to put the vegetation. I originally thought about using these fronds, like I did with the Velociraptor enclosure, but then decided, you know what? I don't really have an enclosure where the main plant life is cacti. Yes, there's cacti in the raptor enclosure, but it's not a main sort of feature. So I decided, put some cacti in there. Make it crazy. It's not like a sandy oasis. This is like a North American desert. And I don't really know if fronds like these existed. Or if they do exist in America. I didn't really do my research. Even though I am an American, I probably should know this. But I know cacti are here. So I decided, you know what, screw it. Let's make this whole American West style sort of enclosure with cacti. And then we come to quite possibly the less painful build of this enclosure, and that's a shelter. So I came up with a couple ideas, like I wanted to make like a very round sort of house with straw over the top. The first draft didn't really look as nice as I wanted it to be. I mean, look at this. This looks hideous. It looks like a person with a very bad haircut. That's what it looks like. So yeah. So I decided to scrap that and try something different by trying to make like a sort of like a square-ish sort of house for them. Resize, the bits of wood and everything. I put a Dilophosaurus in there for some scales, you see how they fit. Dilophosaurus is a pretty big dinosaur in this game, and in real life in general. So, yeah, this build didn't exactly work either, because I would have to resize the quarter circular bits of floor in order for this to work. It was just too much work. And also, the roof. If there's one thing I had to complain about the roof, there's no stinking part of the roof builds where you can, like, fit them in with, like, a curved roof or anything. You just have this weird gap where it should connect. This is the build I end up being satisfied with. I go back to the round sort of building and resize everything. I got these concrete columns here holding up the entrance. I got some straw over the top, which looks nice, and I put down some, straw and things like that. I put I'm blowing it. A blood pumpkin in the center, and I fill in the extra sort of blank space with vegetation. Of course, with all that blank space, there was more room, so I made the shelter bigger, put the blood pumpkin back in, as well as extra bedding, and then finished it off with some more vegetation. And with that, the speed build is done. So let's check out the Dilophosaurus enclosure, now ready for the public. So it decided to rain for this bit, and you know what? We haven't had any rain shown off in the park yet, so we're just going to keep it this way. So this is what the speed build park looks like after all the rebuilding I've had to do. So, what's changed? Well, first of all, we now have a new central hub here for all of our park workers. We have our loading bay, we have a staff center, we have an excavation center, the nursery, and, the supply storage thing. And, of course, we have here, all of our food processing stuff for the animals, even though I have this on sandbox, so we don't really need it. The guests will now walk out here and see, this thing that I call the clock garden, because there are logs here that do tell the time. It says 6:05. Don't know why, but that's the time it spoke. And of course, we also have these gardens here where you can walk through, get a look at the statues and stuff. This fire should not be burning with all this rain. This is just with the mammoths. And over here we have statues for the T-Rex and the Montosaurus. Pretty cool stuff. And of course, like in the first build, the first enclosure you come across is this Microraptor and Archaeopteryx enclosure. But now, I have made this all into like a walkway that has raised platforms and such. Also, I did put this on the Steam Workshop, so if you guys are interested in it, by all means, download it or whatever. And I think it turned out much nicer than the first one, because now it actually looks pretty without the bars and all that stuff. It did take a while for me to come up with the idea, though. Oh, and the rain stopped. Sweet! And then, of course, the first enclosure I built proper was the redesign of the Velociraptor cliffs, which I have done masterfully here. We got all these cliffs here, a sandy spot for them to sunbathe and such. There's waterfall here. Of course, there's a private spot for them to come down to get pumpkins and such. And there's a cave right here that's also right at the waterfall, which is very nice. And of course, the biggest change of all, aside from this, is the fact that there is now 8 Velociraptors in here, rather than the number we had before. And then, of course, we did round robin with the Psittacosaurus, although it's not exactly round robin anymore, as, that enclosure's over there now. But, of course, we have the Psittacosaurus, the Siberian Psittacosaurus enclosure here, the marsh, which I think looks a lot nicer than it did before. I even went through all the trouble to make an actual shelter for them, and thanks to good friend Phoenix, I know where to put hoses and stuff so they can clean it out. And then we got all this stuff for the Psittacosaurus here, and we did end up with another albino, like last time. I don't know where she is. There she is. And then, of course, over here we have the Protoceratops enclosure, completely redesigned from the last one. Again, I think it looks a little bit nicer. Because now it looks like a proper oasis, whereas the rest is just like desert and sand and such. Pretty inhospitable stuff. We have the temperate Psittacosaurus enclosure over here. Again, I think it looks much nicer. This cave is just a modified version of the caves that already exist. Look at this. This looks so much better than the last one. Then over here we have the coastal Psittacosaurus enclosure. And again, looks much nicer. So what I've done here is I would follow one dinosaur, follow it throughout all the paths it would make, and change the terrain paint to make it look like walkways. So now it looks like these are well-ridden, well-traveled sort of roads. Honestly, I think it looks pretty cool. And then over here we have the new cave lion enclosure, which is full of lions. I kid you not, there are 23 lions in this enclosure. 3 males, 20 females. I'm not kidding about this. Look at this. Look at this bull that is the cave lion. Where is it? Panthera spilea. Look at this. Look at this. That's a suggested social group. That's insane. 23 lions in one enclosure. That's... And of course we have the new and improved Dilophosaurus mangroves, which... a vast improvement over what I had before. You still got, like, the waterfalls, but you have all these rock features. You have the mangrove trees, and also these scrubland sort of biomes here. It looks so much nicer than before. And, of course, these guys, they really like to swim. I don't know why. They're big and chunky, and I'm pretty sure Dilophosaurus wouldn't have been a good swimmer, but somehow they're managing. And look at this guy. Well, you could argue he's just walking on the bottom. But these guys really like to be in the water for one reason or another. Oh wait, I think this one's swimming. And look at him. Look at him go. Having the time of his life. But yeah, that's all of the rebuilt enclosures. But now for the enclosure you guys have been watching throughout all this. The Dilophosaurus Canyon. I made some modifications since the speed build recording. There's now a bridge over here. And I put 2 of those sauropod umbrella things on the side and shrunk them down. In case the Dilophosaurus want to have a spa day or something. I don't know. But we want to make them comfortable. I did contemplate putting a water bowl here instead, but I'm like, I don't really like using water bowls. I really would prefer having naturally occurring ponds and lakes and such in these enclosures. So I just made one here. But anyway, the enclosure goes, the keeper would come here and go through this enclosure by, going through these winding canyons to get from to there, where we have fish stocked, because, apparently the Dilophosaurus was not just a carnivore, but also fancy fish. God, these are such beautiful creatures, too. Look at that. This has got to be my favorite Dilophosaurus ever put, in media. Just the black feathers and the purple crest. Oh, it's gorgeous. Absolutely love it. And we have our melanistic female over here. Again, I do not understand why the female of the group is... why there's only one female in the group. Instead of, having, I mean, it's basically a reverse harem, isn't it? One female with a bunch of males. That's literally what this is. But of course, the canyon doesn't end there. Of course, you have this bridge, and I've tested it dozens of times already. They can walk on this. It's wide enough, and it covers up all the edges. And of course, we got this side over here, where there is meat. They don't come here very often. They actually seem to prefer the fish. But they do come through here. Yeah, look at this guy. Using my bridge. And now that I use this solid bridge here, I'm kind of glad because, Dilophosaurus, it's not a small dinosaur. It weighed almost half a ton. So it makes sense for a bridge like this to exist instead of just the wooden planks I was using before. And then, of course, we have their little hideaway sort of house thing where they can just chill and escape from the heat. I'm really proud of this. I didn't have to work on this as hard as I did, but I'm proud of it. Yeah. And that, dear friends, is the Dilophosaurus Canyon. So, in the next video, I'm thinking we're going to do Plateosaurus next. That's obvious, because it's the newest dinosaur in the game. So, what I'm thinking is we plunk it around here somewhere. And then I think we'll start working through some of the bigger dinosaurs. I know that I put a poll up that asked which of these megatheropods would you like to see between Tarbosaurus, Spinosaurus, and Acrocanthosaurus. And Spinosaurus... Actually, no, was it? I have to look again. It was one of the two. Either way, there's going to be a big carnivore coming into the park soon. But if it's Spinosaurus, I have plans to do, like, to put it alongside Carcharodontosaurus, not in the way you think, and Ouranosaurus. Just wait. It'll all make sense when the time comes. So, with that out of the way, I think it's time to end the video. If you enjoyed it and you're looking forward to more Prehistoric Kingdom speed builds, leave a like, subscribe today, hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything new. All of my links are in the link tree in the description down below. And until next time, this is Tyrannosaurus signing off. Alright then, take care now. Bye-bye then.